Welcome to the Virginia Department of Education Office of Career, Technical, and Adult Education's Professional Development and Training Series for CTE administrators. I am Bill Hatch, the CTE Planning, Administration, and Accountability Coordinator, and joining me today is Joseph Ryder, the CTE Data and Reporting Specialist. The agenda for today's session will be broken up into two parts. In part one, we will focus on the federal Perkins grant, including details associated with the end of the year expenditures and reimbursements. Then move on to state CTE funding, specifically both state equipment grants and the industry certification examinations, credentials for STEM-H, the workplace readiness assessment grants, as well as the CTEFR occupational preparation and adult education entitlements for state fiscal year 2020. Then in part two, Joseph will focus on CTE data and credential collection, master schedule collection, student record collections, CTE credential collection, and the CTE annual performance report and data analysis report. And then we will wrap up with some CTE program updates. Now on to part one, federal and state grants. Your CTE federal program funds were issued for the school year 2020-2021 with Superintendent's Memo 123-20 dated May 22nd, 2020. This provided each school division with an estimate of their allocation under Perkins 5. Almost $20.5 million was allocated to secondary CTE programs for the school divisions. This was an increase of almost $500,000 from the previous year. In seeking reimbursement, we used the Online Management of Educational Grant Award System, called OMEGA, to track the Perkins funding through the process of the application, budget transfer, and reimbursement requests. Remember to review the OMEGA User's Guide to better navigate the process in OMEGA. Perkins federal grant transactions must be based on the total allocation from Superintendent's Memo 123-20. It also has to be based on an approved local plan and the CTMS Schedule 17 and an approved OMEGA budget transfer, which must match your Schedule 18 budget summary. After the remaining balance is loaded in October, each school division must ensure that a budget transfer is submitted for 100% of the funding allocation based on your local approved plan. And that must match the object code amounts in your Schedule 18 budget summary worksheet. The expenditure requirements for Perkins funding are that all the expenditures must be in an approved local plan and budget, must be actual school year 2020-2021 expenditures, must be encumbered by June 30th, 2021, must be appropriate local use of funds under Section 135 in Perkins 5. Perkins funding for school year 2020-2021 cannot be carried over to the next year. All reimbursement requests must be submitted by September 30th, 2021, with a best practice of submitting reimbursements monthly or at least quarterly. Unclaimed Perkins funds will be forfeited and reallocated with a focus on unpaid industry certification reimbursements. Next is state CTE funding portion of our presentation. we will review the reimbursement and reporting requirements of the Cte State Funding for 2020-2021, which is also state fiscal year 2021. First, we will look at the Cte State Equipment Allocation in SUPE's Memo 171-20 dated July 10th, 2020. This is $1.8 million, and each school division and regional technical center receives a floor allocation of $2,000, and the remaining is based on enrollment. Next, we have CTE Special Equipment Allocation under SUPE's Memo 172-20 dated July 10th, 2020. This is $1.4 million for equipment in high demand, high skill, fast growth industry sector, and each school division and technical resource center will receive a floor allocation of $1,500, and then the remaining will be based on enrollment. For the state equipment and special equipment allocations, 100% reimbursement of equipment expenditures must be submitted on the appropriate forms before submitting any Perkins federal funds for reimbursement in equipment, and that's object code 8000 in Omega. Because Perkins funds are to supplement, not supplant, any funding currently provided within the locality. Further, state funds for equipment are to supplement, not supplant, any funds currently provided by the local school division. Equipment purchases with state funds cannot be claimed on Perkins federal fund reimbursement requests. But please keep in mind that each equipment purchase can be split among local, state, and federal funding. Reimbursement forms for state equipment must be submitted by Friday, May 21st, 2021. The forms must be signed by the division superintendent or his or her designee in blue ink so that it shows on an original signature. You have three options. One, you can scan and email it. Two, you can fax it. And three, you can put it in the US mail. But remember, only one submission method is required per reimbursement. The following comment in Omega is required when entering the first reimbursement with an object code 8000 equipment item. Because as an approver reviewer, if both state equipment reimbursements are not submitted for the full school division allocation, the reimbursement request in Omega will be denied. Next, we have the state industry certification funding. This is found under SUPE's Memo 170-20 dated July 10th, 2020 for slightly over $1.8 million. The allocation is based on enrollment, and it's averaged out about $2.71 per student. These funds can be used for industry certification exams, including workplace readiness skills, state licensure tests, occupational competitive assessments, and school and regional center certification site licensing. In order to be reimbursed, the certification must be approved by the State Board of Education. However, under the Information Technology Industry Certification Program site testing, the Microsoft IT Academy certifications will not be provided, are provided at no cost, and therefore cannot be claimed on the Cte State Industry Certification Exam reimbursement or on Perkins reimbursements. On to the CTE Industry Credential for STEM-H, which is funded under SUPE's Memo 169-20 dated July 10th, 2020. This is an additional state funding to support industry credentialing for STEM-H, and the use of funds is based on the STEM-H board-approved industry credentials. This is $500,000. This grant is also based on enrollment, and it averages about 74 cents per CTE student. The next state grant is Workplace Readiness Skills for the Commonwealth, funded under SUPE's Memo 183-20 dated July 17th, 2020. The funding is $308,655, and this is the same state level funding as last year. This reimbursement is also based on enrollment, and it averages 46 cents per student. The Workplace Readiness Assessment funding provides flexibility. Funding allocations must be used for the actual workplace readiness assessment or any other industry certification, preparation, and testing. Funding allocation is based on school year 2019-2020 enrollment data for students in secondary CTE courses. With the workplace readiness skills and or other industry certification examinations, the funding reimbursement will be available for the WRS taken in June 2020. These reimbursement request submissions were due by October 31st, 2020. And for exams from July 2020 through May 2021, the reimbursement requests are due by May 21st, 2021. And as before, they must be submitted on the CTE Workplace Readiness Skills reimbursement form that was included in the SUPE's memo. The initial workplace readiness form must be 100% or less of the allocation. Reimbursement requests for CTE state funded allocations must be submitted by Friday, May 21st, 2021. For CTE industry certifications, workplace readiness skills, and STEM-H industry certifications, CTE state funding grants must submit your total allocation amount on the specific reimbursement form for each grant. And again, the whole state allocation must be used before submitting reimbursement in Omega with federal Perkins funds. Subsequent reimbursement requests and any that exceed the initial allocation must be submitted on a separate state reimbursement request form. Continuing, that these separate forms for any additional CTE industry certifications, workplace readiness, or STEM-H exams reimbursement that exceed your total allocation amounts will be held for payment processing until after May 21st, 2021. On June 1st, 2021, unclaimed state allocated industry credentialing funds will be reallocated to school divisions and regional technical centers that have submitted additional reimbursement requests for CTE industry certifications, workplace readiness skills, STEM-H industry certification examinations. This is a reminder to submit your reimbursements in a timely manner. Otherwise, your funds not submitted for reimbursement will be reallocated. Reimbursement for state equipment, state special equipment, industry certifications, workplace readiness skills, STEM-H certifications must be submitted on the appropriate form by May 21st, 2021. These forms must be signed by the division superintendent or his or her designee in blue ink so that it shows an original signature. You have three options. And again, one, it can be scanned and emailed. Two, you can fax it. Or three, you can mail it through the US mail. Remember, only one submission method is required per reimbursement. CTE state program entitlements are detailed under Superintendent's Memo 160-20, dated July 2nd, 2020. And that's for CTE occupational prep and for CTE adult education. For occupational prep, the funding is slightly over $5.5 million, and the CTE adult education funding is slightly over $1.8 million. This state funding is provided for operation, improvement, and expansion of CTE for occupational preparation and adult education programs, and are to support principals and assistant principals of CTE centers where at least 50% of their time is spent in CTE administration or supervision, which does not include comprehensive high schools. It can also be used for extended contracts of instructors for activities related to the coordination, development, or improvement of CTE programs. And for adult occupational CTE programs, to provide opportunities for adults to prepare for initial employment, retraining, or career advancements. This funding is based on actual expenditures reported by the school divisions and regional centers for the prior school year on the CTE federal reports. For school year 2018-2019, occupational preparation expenditures were reimbursed at slightly under 48%. In the adult education expenditures were reimbursed at the same percentage. For the CTE financial report, or CTEFR, Superintendent's Memo 54-21, dated March 5th, 2021, the CTEFR for the school year 2019-2020 will be collected through VDOE's Single Sign-On Web Systems, or SSWS, which is the data report entry application. The CTEFR for school year 2020 2019-2020 expenditure information will be used to calculate your fiscal year 2021 CTE categorized entitlement for occupational prep and adult education programs. After completing the CTEFR data entry, the division superintendent or authorized designee must verify the accuracy of the report and provide it electronically in SSWS. Approval by the school division superintendent is required before submission to VDOE and before it can be considered complete. Reports must be completed and submitted by April 20th, 2021. After all the school divisions and regional centers have submitted their CTFR for school year 2019-2020, VDOE will calculate the state fiscal year 2021 entitlements and process the state payments. The occupational prep and adult education program payments will be paid to the school division in one payment on June 30th, 2021 by electronic transfer. The regional center entitlement will be paid directly to each center's fiscal agent. These school divisions and/or regional technical centers that do not operate any occupational prep or adult education programs during 2019-2020 school year and do not record any local fund expenditures in the CTFR system will not receive any state reimbursement in state fiscal year 2021. And that concludes part one. And now Joseph will continue with part two of the presentation.
Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Ryder. I'm the CTE Data and Reporting Specialist with the Office of Career, Technical, and Adult Education at the Virginia Department of Education. Today, I'll be going over the processes you will use to submit your end-of-year data reports, specifically the different reporting areas within the end-of-year data collection processes. Those include the Master Schedule Collection, Student Record Collection, Cte Credential Collection, the Cte Annual Performance Report, and the Data Analysis Report. The data provided to the department drives decisions pertaining to the funding provided to school divisions for the next school year, as well as reporting student performance to the Board of Education and the U.S. Department of Education. As we approach the end of the school year, we will review some important procedures for the career and technical education data collections. Upcoming collections provide data measures that will affect your school division both financially and for accountability measures. The end of year and summer student record collection provide the information for the preliminary and final completer demographics reports. The master schedule collection and end of year SCDF provide both data for the SCDF division verification report. Finally, the Cte Credential Collection provides the information about each credential offered in Virginia over the previous year. Please have these documents near at hand as they are your guide to Cte data reporting. As with all collections, staff from your Cte office must coordinate closely with the division student information reporting staff. Some data is submitted several times, so please review reports after each data submission for irregularities and errors in order for these to be corrected in a manageable fashion. It is very important that the data is correct in your student information system before school ends for the year. Very often it is difficult to get information corrected during the summer months when this information is extracted by the division information staff. So validate as early as possible. Cte reports for you to review during these submissions include the Secondary Student Career Cluster Enrollment Report, both preliminary and final completer demographics reports, as well as the end-of-year SCDF Division Report. Please take careful time to review these reports and look for unexpected data. Both funding and accountability are based on these reports, so review them line by line. For the Secondary Student Career Cluster Enrollment Report, the most important student record collection data element for all CTE students is the CTE Career Cluster Code, representing each of the clusters that are reported for all CTE students. The Secondary Student Career Cluster Enrollment Report is part of the end-of-year student record collection, or SRC. For the completer demographics report, these elements should be evaluated for completeness and accuracy. Some of this information involves all of the students taking CTE courses, and some are for students finishing their programs during this year. Very often, only CTE staff will have this information, and it is essential that it is recorded in the Division Student Information System that will be used for data extraction over the summer. For all CTE students, the CTE finisher codes 1 through 5 1. A student has finished the requirements to be a CTE completer. 3. The student took at least one CTE approved course since 7th grade or in their high school years. 4. Student took no CTE courses for high school credit since the 7th grade. And finally, 5. Student finished the requirements for CTE completion and dual enrollment. For CTE finishers, the CTE competency attainment flag representing the students attaining 80% of the CTE competencies in the most recent CTE course. And student information with phone number and address. This is important to have updated for next year's completer follow-up survey. You must report the career pathway code for all CTE finishers. You should be aware that the MSC provides specific data in the SCDF reports. There is no spring collection for course enrollment data, and the end-of-year collection is based on data from the spring SRC and end-of-year MSC. Both the fall and end-of-year collections include data for all classes taught throughout the 2021 school year. Also remember that CTE courses reported in MSC must meet all requirements for complete state-approved courses listed in the user's manual appendices and the curriculum requirements in versa. Courses not meeting these requirements must use SCED codes for local electives. Every CTE course must be reported in the MSC based off of the full length of the course. Fractional parts of a course length cannot be processed for an SCDF report, which is important for the MSC. The CTER's user manual provides a list of all the official CTE courses and course lengths. It is essential that the CTE serving school be correctly reported based on where instruction occurs. In the master schedule collection, this is reported based on the course section and the teacher where the class is held. In the student record collection, the student is reported with the serving school where they received their CTE instruction. There are references to the procedures on page 18 of the CTER's user manual. There are a few important steps in the SCDF verification report review process. Were you expecting to see data abnormalities or teachers with large class sizes? If you have an entry on the threshold report section, does this report reflect the teacher's class load? Do the course minutes reflect the entire length of instruction for that class? See the table on page 9 of the CTER's manual for examples. Also, are the SCED codes and sequence numbers reported in the MSC reflective of the course description and the class being taught? There's a web form with threshold explanations on the View Course page for each teacher that needs to be entered when thresholds exist. Please fill in this form in SSWS after the last MSc submission, because whenever a new MSc is submitted, this field gets reset to blank. Threshold explanations must be completed before you will be able to submit your SCDF to your superintendent for signature in the SSWS. Even though the MSc collection has changed its method of data entry, the SCDF still requires interaction from Cte staff. Remember that you must enter explanations for each of the teachers in certain conditions, such as when class sizes exceed 35 students or when instructional minutes exceed 54,000 minutes in a year. You should be in regular contact with your division's data staff in charge of student reporting. They may need to be given direction on the number of data elements that are Cte related. For the F records, work-based learning codes that are used to report counts of students in cooperative education. It also records the dual enrollment flag, identifying students that are enrolled in Cte dual enrollment courses. For the reporting of a course section concurrently taught by a teacher at the same time, you will use an I record. The primary section should be the section with the... Just a reminder of the many points of information from the SCDF affects. Federal Perkins reporting for Cte data required by the Board of Education and the General Assembly, and to provide measures of accountability to be used in the development of the Cte local plan to serve as a basis for allocating state funds and to assure the state and OSHA regulations for class size are met. Credentialing reporting is high stakes because it is used in calculations for both accountability and funding. It is also a measure of the effectiveness of your instructional programming. In addition, it is a valuable commodity to your student for their future employment. The process is largely unchanged from last year. Industry credentialing data must be submitted in the single sign-on web system. Credentialing data collection system between May 1st, 2021 and July 31st, 2021. The STI, or Student Testing Identifier, should be verified for accuracy before the last day of school. Regional centers may report credentialing information to the student's home school in order for this data to be recorded. The regional centers should verify the accuracy of this data reported on their behalf by the responsible school division. This may require reviewing each time a division resubmits their data. Many student information systems will export a file that can be used in the CTCC data submission process. The correctness of this file will reflect the accuracy of the data entry that is being performed in your schools throughout the year, and especially this spring. It includes the SCED code, Virginia Extended Description. The header has 7 lines. The A record has 1 line, and B records have 1 line for each credential attempt by the student. The record count is equal to the total number of A records and B records and is listed on 1 line. Review page 23 on the CTIERS user manual for details. The extract used in this year's submission is the same as the record layout from your local data system for this year. This is a sample data file layout. Many school divisions store credentialing and testing information in the student information system. If corrections are required after extracting this data to a text file, then this file may be directly edited before submission. Do not use software like Word and Excel as they generate hidden characters and tabs in the file. The final file for submission may have no blank lines, tabs, or extra spaces, or an error will be generated during the file submission. The submission error messages will help you to target errors for correction. Once the file is 100% accurate, reposting will overwrite the previous submission. Remember that workplace readiness skills for the Commonwealth should not be included in this data submission. The WRS is reported by CTEX directly to the VDOE in late summer. Once CTEX reports the data in, it's loaded into the SSWS system and then imported into the Credentialing Reports. After a successful submission, you can validate data submission by a detailed review of all reports in SSWS of the Cte data collection application. Please review the documentation linked on the next 2 slides for the details on the collection process. This includes the CTIER's user manual linked here with the procedures for the CTECC and the appendix listings of valid course codes. In early 2022, the data you are now verifying will be reported to the U.S. Department of Education, the State Board of Education, and will be published for the division level data as the annual performance report. For some divisions that have multiple schools with students in the 9th grade and above, you will also receive a data analysis report for those schools in your division via the single sign-on Dropbox. On the APR, information is reported on the Perkins measures, and the performance of the school divisions is used in the preparation of the Cte local plan. The data analysis report provides more detail than the annual performance report by showing information about performance by individual high schools. In summary of today's sessions, review and validate data early enough for all the interested parties to review it and make sure it's accurate and correct. With this, you'll have a successful year and good data submissions. Thank you for your time, and I'm going to pass it back to Bill for the conclusion.
Thank you, Joseph, for providing that detailed information. Just wanted to give a few announcements before we close. It is critically important that the CTE directors submit their Perkins application in a substantially approvable format by April 30th, 2021. Perkins plans that have not been submitted in Omega in a substantially approvable format prior to July 1st, 2021 will not be permitted to use Perkins funds until the date when the plan is submitted. Additionally, email one or more new plans of study using a Word file to the CTE mailbox. And email the signed signature page also to the CTE mailbox. And if applicable, email the Cte Federal Program Monitoring Self-Assessment Report. And this is determined by the 6-year review cycle for 2020-2021, which is located on the Cte webpage. Please note that a comprehensive local needs assessment is not required this year. You may update it if necessary. It will be required with the submission of Perkins 5 2022-2023 application in April 2022. We hope that everyone found today's presentation beneficial. And please take a few minutes to complete the evaluation of today's session using the link on the slide. We will utilize the information feedback as part of a continuous improvement of our professional development series. If you have any questions, certainly do not hesitate to contact our director, George Wilcox, Joseph, or me with any specific questions pertaining to closing out your financial or data reporting. You may also email the CTE office box for assistance. Thank you very much, and we look forward to your end of the year reports. We hope that the remaining months will be successful as we close out this school year. Thank you.